All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. As always, host Brandon Jim, my co-host Dan. No Nick, he is still overseas watching Nebraska lose a very Nebraska style
horribly.
loss to kick
Ooh,
off the
not
American
good.
college football season.
But he had a great day out. It looked like he had a great time out, except for the match, which is very typical of most type of sporting events. You don't go knowing or feeling that your team is going to 100% win. I mean, unless you're an Alabama fan, pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much the way it works in college football. But we had to get someone in, Brandon, to spend some time with us. Someone who could give us a little bit of a feel for what it was like to be there yesterday as Chelsea claimed all 3 points. And it's Ollie Glanville back again joining us. And we're so excited you're here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, pleasure to join you as always.
Oh, it is going to be good in case you are still confused what we're doing. This is the Leicester City match review. All right. This is the one where Chelsea foiled the Foxes with Tuchel watching in the stands. That pesky little touchline ban that really didn't mean a whole lot. And thanks to superb performances, Raheem Sterling, Thiago Silva, and many others, which we'll touch on, the return of Trevoh Chalobah in the lineup and his future crystallizing after another strong outing from the young man. And then with questions still needing answers ahead of the transfer window closing, we tackle a few of our own. So to kick it off, Dan, we always want to temp check. What are the lovely people out there saying with our patented 3-word match review?
Patented, trademark, registered, copyrighted. It's here. It's a 3-word match review. And look, Janique got us started with gritty 3 points, which had to throw a little gritty gift back at her for that. The Beltway Blues with 10 men win. She talks ball. Good friend Rada with the win for women. Obviously, the Chelsea women were all out and about in and around Stamford Bridge yesterday, and there were plenty of photos of them enjoying the match and seemingly trying to figure out why it's so hard for the men's team to score. You had AJ with bubble wrap Thiago, agree, cosign. Aaron with the overcoming obvious obstacles. We love a little alliteration here. Jason with the who needs 11 question mark. Jay with the Fofana might have helped. Mark with the Silva fucking everywhere. McLeasy with the big Trev energy. And then Bill of Rights with the season starts all red. Get it? Red.
Yeah, I suppose. Bummer for big old con dog there. I put team overcomes inexperience. Pretty obvious there. Thankfully, no huge loss for Connor, but definitely his moment made it far more difficult, but it might have actually invigorated the team a little bit, ironically. Dan, what about you?
I said thanks to Wes, but thank you, Wes, because this game would have been way more difficult if they had one more competent defender in the lineup, and they did not. So let's just take advantage of what we did. Let's not focus too much on what could have gone differently and run forward with 3 points into the next match.
All right, Ollie, what about you?
I went with Reese's Sterling Silva. So you got the 3 best players on the pitch. You got the silver service that Reese provided for the second goal there. And just the fact that, those 3 just kind of dominate proceedings, really.
I mean, yesterday, absolutely hard to overcome anything that those 3 did. And we're going to be diving way more into them. But before we do, we have some thank yous, Dan. When people help us, we show respect, our gratitude.
Yes, gratitudes followed by platitudes. We want to thank Lee and Meaty on Patreon for helping follow us and support us, give us a little extra funding to do tons of cool stuff, and we appreciate that. On Apple Podcasts, Eggy Spy from the UK, and then Crawford Sawyer from the UK, leaving wonderful 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate that. Helps people find the show, let them know that we're your favorite Chelsea podcast. And then on Spotify, still at a 4.9, over 1,300 reviews, and just pushing towards that 1,400 barrier. So let's bust through that as Chelsea close out the transfer window, hopefully in phenomenal fashion. And it helps people find us too. So leave a review, ask a friend to leave a review, borrow a buddy's phone, don't steal it, borrow it, give it back, and leave a review. It's really appreciated. We'll get into match details now, Brandon, because that's what we do. That's what we're here to do.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and dive into the match. Before we get into the analysis, we want to set the stage per usual. So it was Leicester City this past Saturday, the 27th of August. It was in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge. In case you missed it, Chelsea 2, Leicester City 1. Goals coming from Raheem the Dream Sterling in the 47th and 63rd minute. Not much time had passed. And then Harvey Barnes with a bit of a scare 66th minute. I know they hit the post a couple times, but that is how it stands. Ollie, you being inside El Estadio de Stamford Bridge, what was it like in there? We know we've had some mixed results. It's been a little bit up and down. Koulibaly was going to miss, but it looked like the weather was there. So I feel like the fans were going to be up for it.
Yeah, we're always up for a bit of sun in London. Climate change means it's more and more often, and it was pretty hot there actually. And we started like a proverbial house on fire, to be honest. I mean, the first yellow for Connor was kind of more about the freneticism in the middle of the pitch. The midfield was just kind of flying around all over the shop, and that kind of filtered into the crowd. And obviously, we'll come on to the goals, but once that first goal goes in, the roof came off, and the second one as well. So we bounced off each other nicely, I think.
Good. Love to hear it. It's always good when we get the perspective from inside the stadium, which is the one thing we never get. So we appreciate you sharing that. All right. Before we jump into the lineup, we're going to head over to the Fifth Stand app for the official Chelsea FC highlights. Yes, that's right. They share the highlights with us, and in turn, we promote. If you've not downloaded the official Chelsea FC app, the Fifth Stand app, go do it now. Tons and tons of content coming during and right after the match. So here we go. All right. Well, now that we relived a bit of a dramatic yet fun match, Dan, lineup time. Look, we saw 3-4-3. We saw 4-3-3. This is saying 4-4-2. No one really knows. How about you just tell us who is out there and we'll figure it out?
It's a very fluid thing. It is a very fluid thing. The lineup is there to help get 11 names on a sheet. Once it actually is in practice and practicality, all rules are off, particularly with a midfield that we had yesterday. But anyway, it was that one many between the sticks: Trev Chalobah, Thiago Silva, Reece James, and Marc Cucurella as your defenders. In the midfield, again, quotation marks: Jorginho, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Mason Mount, and Conor Gallagher, who did see an early red card. We had Raheem Sterling and Kai Havertz as your attackers on there. Kepa, Ethan Ampadu, Hakim Ziyech, Armando Broja, and Callum Hudson-Odoi, unused substitutes, and Ben Chilwell, Azpilicueta, Mateo Kovacic, and Christian Pulisic, all making appearances off the bench.
Well, again, Ollie, before the match, we were talking, is Reece right back? Is he right center back? It all was very fluid. I mean, like I said, no matter what source you had, what was your kind of take on the lineup and maybe what the formation was? Or does it even matter? Shane is screaming right now, it doesn't matter, but tactics alone, there is a little bit of value there.
To me, it's actually really interesting. Obviously we had our hands kind of tied with Kalidou out, a few injuries going around. Obviously no Kante, Kova, Tuchel can only play 20 minutes, right? So it was going to be a bit patchwork, but we could see that it was going to be 4. And then as the game kicks off, we looked like kind of 4-4-2 out of possession, 4-2-4 in possession. At some points it was like 4-1-5. We'll say euphemistically it was dynamic, right? in midfield, we were seeing Thiago underlapping Cucurella at times and actually like taking up a kind of left wing role almost. Trev was pushing up as well. So in possession, we were kind of very fluid, I'll say. It's the type of system that you would work on in pre-season. We did not have that potentially long pre-season that others have had, and that kind of showed in the game yesterday.
I feel like a lot of teams are going to come away from playing this Leicester side without any reinforcements, and they're going to have a lot of work to do, and feeling like it was a preseason match, to be fair.
All right. Well, on that note, some of the match stats from this one, Chelsea actually with only 45% possession at home, which is very odd, but there's a stat at the end here that might determine why that was. We had 7 shots, 3 on target. So at least our on target to shot ratio taking a big jump up. Leicester, they did manage 17 shots, 5 on target, which is usually the opposite. That's usually what we're seeing on the Chelsea line. Again, had less touches, had less passes, things that are very, not normal for this side. We had 18 tackles there, 17, 25 clearances to their 14, definitely under the cosh a little bit. We only had 3 corners. They had 11. 3 offsides there, 1 a yellow card for us, 2 for them, and the lone red card going to Conor Gallagher in the first half. We conceded 10 fouls to their 7. And then the last fun stat here would be the XG. So from the analyst, we had Chelsea 2, Leicester City 1, and the total being Chelsea 1.67 to 2.12 for Leicester City, which means we had to defend for our lives a little bit today, and they did just that. So again, team effort on this one, had to grind, had to grit through a lot of this, but got it done. And the NPET shithouse moment of the match, while we don't have Nick, Ollie, a bit of a shout here, don't you?
I do. So for those who couldn't hear at home, Leicester City fans were chanting Ben Chilwell. He sits on the bench for as long as the game as they possibly could. And then when he came off the bench, he gave a bit back with a kind of gesture to the Leicester fans as he came on the pitch. So that was nice to see.
Old loves showing up again in your life, and how we treat them is a little bit different for everybody, but love that Chili B is up to it. It really no surprise there whatsoever. One random stat coming from ad op to Joe saying 3. Raheem Sterling is the 3rd player in Premier League history to score for each of Man City, Liverpool, and Chelsea after one Nicolas Anelka and Daniel Sturridge. Absolute company. So I would definitely go out to dinner with Anelka over Sturridge. Nothing against him. I've just seen the Anelka kind of documentary on Amazon. Man, that dude is an interesting cat. So miss those days. Anyways, we're about to jump into it. Before we do, we're going to take our quick ad break and get out of the way. So huge shout out to the sponsors for financially supporting the show, and we'll be right back. All right, Dan, as we flip out of the ad break, we do have a lot more content coming, everybody. My plug is just that we still have some shirts left, Chaos and Trophies. If you don't believe that Chelsea are all about chaos and trophies, it's in our DNA. Look at the beginning of the season and our preseason. So anyways, shirts are in stock. Hit us up on the website. I'll get them shipped out this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good shout. I do think this is the year that the Chelsea women's team are going to win the Champions League. So I think this is a perfect time to pick up a shirt ahead of that, because that's the direction we're heading. And it's all going to be on the back of Lauren James continuing to fly extremely high, Ollie, as you and I were texting this morning as the match was going on US time and afternoon UK time.
Yeah, she's feeling, I think, in herself, but also those watching her are feeling like this is going to be a huge year for Lauren. Once again, scoring in pre-season against Spurs earlier. And just she makes it look so easy. She's so hard to take off the ball. And her left foot is great. So there's a lot to look forward to. She has such a high ceiling, just like Reece. And long live the James dominance in terms of England as well. They've got going to be a record-breaking brother and sister coming up in the national break.
Odds are massive on that. So anyways, go check out Blue Royalty, covering the women's team every single week. Jesse, Abdullah, Nick, and rotating guests. So anyways, jumping into the analysis side of this one, the first point I want to talk about, like we said, was the fact that Chelsea foiled the Foxes. Thank you, Dan, for making that simple on me. Thanks to Sterling, Silva, and others. So it had all the hallmarks of a bad day out. First half was miserable. Connor picked up an early yellow, and then somehow, after a terrible corner set piece, he ended up being the last man back, and just innately he was like, oh, I need to stop this counter, probably forgetting he was on the yellow. So he got a second yellow, down a man, almost an hour to play down, but 10 players is all it took for Chelsea to ruin Leicester's day in London. And at times, at least me personally, Dan, I forgot Chelsea were down to 10 players. At times I forgot that it wasn't full strength. The times I remember that is when we would put our foot on the ball, stop, let Leicester retreat, and then take a breath and relax, and then decide what we want to do.
Yeah, we had a lot of opportunity to reload in this match, which doesn't feel like you should be able to do when you're playing down. There was the initial chaos that transpired after we scored, and that was kind of a moment we just kind of sunk our heads. But then also, like, after Connor was sent off, there was the, oh shit, we're gonna have to try to deal with this now for the remainder of the match. And credit to the entire side for banding together in that moment, because we have seen in the past that this team can lose their heads a little bit, but they were able to galvanize really quickly and figure out, okay, here's how we're going to be able to beat them. And it goes back to how we've talked about how this team can actually play every time and not have to play this expansive style of football or maintain all the possession, that this team is actually really, really well built to take advantage of quick action on counters and to move the ball forward. And having, we talk about having possession for possession's sake doesn't really do anything. But boy, oh boy, when you have someone like Raheem Sterling who can beat a defender in a foot race, Ollie, and can pull off two really good shots and put them through, probably should have had a hat trick as well. Just a really, really nice initial couple of games for him. And to finally see him get two in this match, I think is a testament to what he's going to bring, why he's the right fit for this attack. And the fact that I think, from a talent ID standpoint, we got this signing really, really right.
Yeah, like breaking news, Dan. If you put a threatening player in and around the box who's competent finishing wise, he's going to score goals, right? We've operated under this like false illusion recently that you don't have to have players in the box in order to score goals. And that kind of manifested in our front three for a lot of the game yesterday when we were drifting out wide in order to create, but not having anyone in the middle to finish. And Raheem basically took it on himself to firstly with the first goal that was deflected. It was beautiful to watch, especially from my angle. It was right in line with it. And then the second one's it's such a simple goal, but we just don't see it at this club very often. We haven't seen it since maybe, early Tammy, Diego, Didier, just in that area, what Richard Amalfa calls the gold mine at the back post there, GOALD mine, just because that's where the tap-ins are, right? That's where the easy goals are, high XG numbers, right? And we're so happy for Raheem yesterday. He's coming in as the main man now. And this is going to really, really help him in that regard. You could see in the celebration for the first one, especially, just how much of a kind of weight off his back it was. Things weren't kind of working out for him luck-wise early season. And now these two goals are the first one was like, great, I've got my goal. The second one was, this is me, I'm here.
Love that analysis. He'd been knocking on the door all season, right? And has an assist. Now he has the 2 goals to back it up, especially in a moment. And I think Tuchel said, he essentially told Raheem, was like, we need you. We're relying on you. Like, go do it. And he did the business. He's able to step up. Dan, it is nice when you can quantitate some of the value that a player adds. And while Raheem definitely passed the eye test, the different things and parts of the match that he was involved in, I think really shows maybe like just how versatile of a player he is. You always think of him as just probably someone who hangs out around the half line, waiting to, hit on the break, or always in around the opponent's box. But this guy's committed to seems like the team tactics based on what we see here.
He had 3 shots. He had 2 on target, and he scored 2 goals, and that was above the expected goal total that he's delivered. So
I would argue 3 if it weren't for Ward's
would have scored 3. Yeah, Ward had a really, really fantastic save on him. I think in the moment when you were watching it live, you're like, oh, how did he miss that? Come on. But when you go back and watch it, you're like, damn, this is why Ward is starting for them. Even though they're a terrible team, Ward actually had a really good display in that regard. And the other goals were just perfectly worked. Moved at pace, moved quickly, quick transition, great crossing in, arriving on the ball and not having to do much with it, which is something we have struggled to do, and making sure that it's so fast that you can't respond to it. This is something we're able to do effectively. And I worry that as we think about the next 2 matches, getting some players back healthy, if we go back to tons of possession and making it really difficult on ourselves, that we won't benefit from the same level of quick movement, quick engagement, and putting ourselves in a position to take advantage of Raheem's, his skill set, his ability to play in this way. I think the stats you're mentioning, Squawka had it with 1.15 XG. I also saw 1.3 elsewhere. 37 touches, 3 touches in the box, 3 shots, 3 duels won, 2 fouls won, 2 shots on targets, 2 goals, and 1 chance created, which are all things that you should be excited about, Ollie.
Absolutely, man. And, we'll probably come on to it, but that Reece Raz partnership is something that's really really encouraging to watch. We talk about in preseason how you know for Man City it's such an easy game because they have so many easy repeatable actions.
Yeah.
That second goal is something we can do so many times this season. Reece is going to put it on a plate for him. Raheem is going to be there to tap in. We can just keep going and going with that.
It's the move that gets spammed, like when you're playing a fighting game or something. You tap someone into a corner, and you're like, "Please stop doing this!" Like it's so lame that you're doing that. I don't care. I will take that move every single game, 3 or 4 times. Win 1-0, 2-0 the rest of the season. I will take that all the way to the bank. Like let's see the Reece James Raz partnership. And I think maybe just kind of talking about Reece and Cucurella for a second. Brandon, I think both of them, Reece in particular, who at moments, particularly in that first half, got into his like Hulk out, like, fuck it, I'm just going to do this myself when we were going through a little period of instability. But then also being able to combine, cross it in from the right in the second half of the match, just showing his versatility, showing why being able to play the right wing back role for the remainder of the season versus having to play a right back position is going to be really beneficial for us too.
Well, I mean, look, I'm on pretty public record about what I think should be.
Did you do a podcast or something?
Reece's look, it's on TikTok, so it's really official. Of just where I see Reece being successful. I don't like us having to marginalize his abilities by putting him at right center back and waiting until the 60th minute to move Ruben in and then move him up, because he's just so devastating from the beginning, whether it's right back or, right wing back. We can see what he has to do. And look, I don't think it's below the fold here that we should talk about his hairstyle. The guy has swag and confidence. And that is translating to the field. I mean, guys, it wasn't that long ago that I remember Lee Parker grabbing Reece James after some of his first minutes for like the first team, like 3 seasons ago. He was so quiet. He was so shy. Couldn't get anything out of him. Now when Reece walks onto the pitch, he's a stone cold killer. He has all the confidence in the world in his abilities and in this game. He's going to, whatever happens, he's going to take it on the chin. He's going to deal with it. He's going to drive the team forward because he just knows that he belongs there and he's going to go make an impact. And like, we're starting to see a little bit of style from him, which is great that we got the substance first and now the style, and he's growing into himself. And I'm so excited to see like where Reece James grows as a player, because he's not done and he's already terrorizing people. So yeah, look, put him at right wing back, gets an assist. Weird. Also, Cucurella, which we'll get on later, out on the wing, gets an assist. Wing backs FC. That is the team. They have to be at their prime under Tuchel to be successful. And Reece James is one of the best in the business. And the less he plays at right wing back, the more it sucks for us. And hopefully you'd assume that Fofana unlocks the right wing back, clears day for Reece. Does that suck for Ruben? Of course. He'll figure it out. He's a professional with a lot of different talents and abilities. So he'll be just fine.
Wow. I mean, you just shocked us in the silence there for a moment. I hope that Jake does not edit it out fully for the gasp there that we had to put in. But I think as we kind of talk about that back half of the pitch, our defense, because we were doing a lot of that defending, I think, as John Terry put it in his tweet, I fucking love this man, with the quote tweet of Chelsea's video about the new or current Mr. Chelsea, Thiago Silva. Ali, he's a fan favorite. He's the individual that people wish we had him 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that we could have had a chance to watch him play for our side more. But yesterday on what I dubbed as half a hamstring for the last part of the match, that he was able to pull out some really impressive, just individual moments of brilliance that kept Chelsea in it and allowed us to, with 10 men, feel like it was 11 again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when we went down to 10, it was like the back three and Reece especially just said, fine, I'll do it myself, and just kind of puffed out their chest and said, we are going to be 11 men, whether you like it or not. I think Opta will have to check this, but I think Thiago Silva blocked or stopped the ball with every single part of his body. Um, Yesterday there was, I think, there were about 3 or 4 duels with Keenan Dewsbury Hall and Harvey Barnes there on the left wing for Leicester, where he just kind of stood up with them on the halfway line and said, "Go on, beat me." And these are like, these are dynamic guys. They got pace to burn really, and he's just there fronting it up, going, "Go on, try and beat me." And every single time, just outpsych them, and not to, go on about the leadership that he offers as well. Just kind of geeing up the fans as well, especially when they had corners or when we had like last man blocks, stuff like that. But yeah, you say that fans wanted him 4 or 5 years ago, and obviously so many of us did, but it already feels like he's been here 10 years, man. Like it literally feels like he's always been a Chelsea player. And there's something about signing for Chelsea is, the best signings for Chelsea sign for the club, right? They don't sign for the team, they sign for the club. And when you buy into that, it's magical.
Like, imagine being PSG and betting against Thiago Silva. And that set us up for immense success because he came in with a massive chip on his shoulder, with so much to prove. Even to PSG and other people maybe didn't want him. It fell into place so nicely, and it is just kind of wild. But it's like they awoke the beast in Thiago, and I'm sure he's probably working harder now than what he was, 4 or 5 years ago. Partially because he's kind of realizing he's human, not really, but because he wants to prove people wrong. If you doubt a player with elite mentality that Thiago Silva has, remember we're talking about Brazil captain, been in World Cups, been in Copa Americas, been in Serie A, been in Ligue 1, Champions League after Champions League. I mean, this guy, there's a reason that he's been so successful at the absolute highest of highest levels. And imagine like questioning his mentality. He's a mentality monster. And you see that the expected Chelsea's. I mean, you talked about it. 5 tackles, 4 clearances, 4 loose ball recoveries, 2 block shots, 4 out of 5 aerial duels won, 5 out of 5 ground duels won. Huge display. Copy, paste. Again, Dan, I think even in this photo, we see him grabbing his hamstring a little bit. Definitely at the end of the game, I don't know if he was time wasting or what, but he was scaring the absolute life out of all of us Chelsea fans, being like, "No, your hamstring is fine, Thiago."
And that's why we included AJ's 3-word match review. We need to bubble wrap him. We need to put him in plaster. We need to make sure that in between the matches, he goes into whatever regimen it is that keeps him healthy for the remainder of the season, because there will be matches that he will not play this season. It's just the nature of being an older player and conditioning. And so there will be times we need to do without him the remainder of the season. I do not look forward to those times. I enjoy the times that we do get to watch him on the pitch. And, let's just say if this were his last season or his kind of last rodeo here, as we think about like the future, as we talk about maybe other defenders stepping up, other defenders coming in, what a joy to have had him for this period. And we should, as fans, just appreciate the fact that he's here now in the moment and enjoy what he's doing for us to help us push forward. We talk a lot about Asby, what he's done in terms of his leadership and his ability to galvanize the team and supporters and make sure that we kind of worked our way through a really tough period. Thiago Silva is part of that too. Thiago Silva is part of that fabric. He's part of the tapestry. He's part of the story of Chelsea. And now he will have been a part of that, helping us transition into reclaiming a championship identity, going back to being the best of Europe, going to, and for the first time being Club World Cup champions. Like, Thiago Silva is a massive part of Chelsea history now in such a short period of time. And that is a very, very hard thing to do, and just speaks out how special he is as a player.
Well, look, backline dominance.
Can't follow that up. I know.
I'm trying.
Of silence.
I'm connecting it. Backline dominance, right? Is the key that we've talked about even to this season. Nick has been talking about, hey, roll it back, like defend way more, and then we can go forward a little bit less. Like let's clean it up in the back. Obviously, keeping Thiago healthy is a huge part of that. Fofana coming in, Reece James going to right wing back, Cucurella kind of starting to find his rhythm again within the Chelsea team. Even though we've I think played 2 to 3 different formations potentially in the last couple of matches as well. So like there's still a lot of changes that are happening. But another change that we inserted was Trevoh. Trevoh came back into the back line for reasons not in his control. But hey, last season, availability was his best ability, and he seized on it. And here we go again. Trevoh back in the lineup, defending great. And Dan, if you'd like to sing the lyrics here, I'm fine with that.
I don't do singing on this show. But what I will say is
you wrote lyrics, so
well, Trev is back again, defending great. Tell a friend. I mean, to no surprise, Trev is back in the lineup, and he is looking good in that role. Again, he's got a great range of passing distribution. He's very tidy on it. Look, does he occasionally get beat because he's a little younger and trying something maybe a little bit more experimental? Sure, but you know what? He didn't have to deal with Thomas Tuchel yelling at him on the sideline for 45 minutes in this match. And so that was something that probably benefited him because he could figure out a little bit on his own. He gets to work alongside, again, Thiago Silva, who we just waxed poetically about. He has the opportunity to work with Reece as well, someone he has played with a fair bit of time before, not even just last season, but kind of in the youth academy setup as well. And so, you know, in general, this lots of things to be excited about because I think that, you know, Naz tweeted this right before we kind of started, but that Chelsea have told Trev Chalobah that they want him to stay and he's happy to fight for his place. He had big interests. We saw many clubs being associated with him, even Spurs saying like, hey, please, we'll yeah, totally. Yeah. Hand raised. We will absolutely find a way to fit him into our team, saying just how good he is. But he's been told he is part of the short and long-term future, despite the imminent signing of Wesley Fofana. And I think that is something, Ollie, that as supporters, it's a feel-good storyline as we see, even though we're bringing in extremely talented young players across Europe, whether that's within the academy system or in the first team setup, that we're still finding a way to keep some of these players in the squad happy, committed, and motivated, which I don't think we've always nailed that mixture. This is a really good signing. I think that's going to portend to what is to come with Chelsea.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely for the future. I mean, you think of 3 players currently on our books, or not as we speak, but hopefully by the end of the day, Wesley Fofana, Trevor Chalobah, and Levi Colwill. That's a like world-class back 3 for the next decade, right? You've got versatility all across the back. Trev can play in midfield as well. You know, Trev started this match at right centre back. He ended the match at left centre back in a back 3. So that, you know, the versatility is obvious. And again, you know, we haven't lost with this guy. Like every game he starts, we don't lose. The only time we've lost with Trev is on penalties, and he scored the penalty he had to take in that shootout. So, you know, it's not this guy's issue. But yeah, it's such a good good news story in terms of how we've brought this back from the brink and convinced him to stay, and the pathway is there. And yeah, hopefully, you know, sense has been seen now, and we can value these players appropriately. Because if Trev is on the market and we're looking at him in terms of versatility and a DM option, we'd have to pay through the nose to get him. So, you know, value what you've got, you know.
It's got to be important, you know, that's taken into consideration. Look, a concern I think that has to be addressed is even in the current squad, if Fofana comes in, which I think we can all assume is going to happen. I mean, he was tweeting goodbye essentially and like things like that. I mean, it is confirmed. Is Trev 2 or 3 in the depth chart? Aspie's still there, right? You know, what was the conversation they had with him to get him to re-sign? That's kind of my concern at this point. I know we're going to play 60 games, but to have 3 right center backs, knowing that Trevoh is behind an almost world record signing. I'm sorry, he's not behind, but he's in the mix with a near world record signing, and the club captain who has just celebrated his birthday and his 10-year anniversary. The deck is a little stacked against him. And I would like to think that Trevoh is in front of Aspie for future and long-term plans, but we've ruled Aspie out before and he's made us look like fools. So anyways, Ollie, concerns with that? Thoughts? How does that play out?
I think again, like Dan was mentioning that, you know, Thiago was playing with up to and including half a hamstring at points yesterday, and just playing through the thing, right? And 5 subs is back this season. We need to be really intelligent with how we use our older players. Once again yesterday, we had 10 men on the field, and the subs came in super late. Like we had one sub at halftime with Mace, with Mace going off, and then we waited a long time before Pooley came on for fresh legs. And essentially, Tuchel kind of just said, "We're going to abandon the middle third. Just you guys stay up, and we're going to have this like pivot, and then the 5 behind." And that's why Leicester were encouraged onto us. So I mean, Trev's going to have to come in, and he should come in. Aspi cannot play every game. Thiago cannot play every game. Kalidou cannot play every game. These are all people who need to be swapped in and out intelligently. So again, I think Trev's versatility really plays into that, and he's going to be a really useful asset.
And when you look at the fact that last season, he had 2,200 plus minutes across all competitions. It's 30 matches played, 24 matches started. I wouldn't be surprised if he matched or exceeded that this season, even with Fofana coming in. If any one of our defenders ends up getting injured, I think he's an immediate backfill for Kalidou, most likely, even though you have Kukurea now who could play that left center back role. I think you're going to want to try to keep both him and Chilwell as healthy as possible and institute a little bit more rotation between them and try to save that usage in the back 3 as a last resort type of thing, because we saw, and as we talked about earlier, Brandon, we are wingback FC. It does not work if you do not have healthy wingbacks. And so you don't want to potentially risk, Chilwell being out injured or, Kukurea being out injured for any period of time because you're playing them both every single match. Maybe if Kalidou's out, you would rather have Trev on the left or work something else out to ensure that you get him rotated in, you keep other players healthy. And I think Trev is going to get a lot of opportunity. I would say up to and right before the World Cup. I think there's going to be a lot of players who are probably trying to figure out how they play 60 minutes. Okay, hey, I think we got this unlocked. Can I maybe get subbed out because I'm going to the World Cup? I'm about to play for my team. I'd really like to win. Is there any chance I can be the first one off the pitch today? We've got a lot of players in our squad that are going to the World Cup that have massive aspirations, and you are fooling yourself if they are not having that conversation about their own personal health and well-being and how they're used. Even though they want to win with the team, they also want to win for their country as well. And they're going to be advocating for themselves. And players like Trev are going to be the beneficiary in terms of minutes because of that.
Look, the point about no more midweek breaks, no more 6 days between matches from now to the World Cup, that definitely changes things. Your Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, back and forth is definitely going to stretch some players, and they're going to have to see. I mean, Kovacic just got about 15, 20 minutes for the first time, which is good to see. He was happy to run. He was running everywhere. You could tell he was so glad to be back on. And there's going to be moments that players are going to have to come in and do a job. So I guess to that point, there's going to be opportunities. We just have to see who's available throughout those days and how Tuchel and his team manages the players based on, who we're playing and kind of who's coming up next, because, it's Leicester City today down to 10 men. Probably wasn't their plan, playing Southampton on Tuesday, who are now not the only team in the 9-0 club. So good on them. Next up, there's still a lot of speculation in the transfer window. We've been bringing on Matt Law and Naz, even Adam Newson, trying to keep a pulse on everything that's going as best we can. Did you guys see the clip of the fan yelling at Todd Boehly yesterday?
Oh gosh.
Look, shoot your shot.
You have a seat. Is that really what you want to do with your seat?
He might not have his seat any longer. Long story short, some fan was above the owner's box and yelled down to Todd, "Don't sign Gordon. He's shit." And I'm not co-signing that. I'm just relaying the message, to which you saw Todd kind of look around. Essentially, was like, can someone take care of that? Because we actually have a plan here that we're operating on. I just hope that plan doesn't include Connor and Broya to Everton for Anthony Gordon. But anyways, there's still a few days left in the transfer window. Fofana looks likely. United sniping at Aubameyang. So we've got a few things we can talk about here to really talk about how this team can round themselves out and be ready to take 4 competitions plus managing World Cup expectations on this season, which is a first for everybody. So Fofana medical happening at the time of recording. Seemingly our defense is settled for the window. Anyways, I think that this is also announced that Ampadu is looking likely that he's going to leave permanently, ? So yeah, I mean, Dan, Fofana coming in, we talked about that depth chart, maybe a little light at left center back. Obviously they signed Cucurella for that flexibility to go between left wing back and left center back. And if Trevo, starts to learn from Thiago Silva about that sweeper role, now we're kind of a little bit more balanced. But I mean, the Fofana I'm missing it, but you guys tell me that he is the bee's knees, so I'm just going with that.
I feel like I have to, even though you threw it to me, I have to cede it to Ali because he has been ready to talk about Fofana and been bursting at the seams to do so. So I will yield the floor to the wonderful individual from the UK who's joining us on this podcast. I cede my time.
Thank you, Chairman. What I would say is, for me, Wesley is probably one of the best young centre backs in the world, right? The fee we're paying seems high, and even though it seems like the fee is going to be paid next year instead of this year, he offers like such a wide variety of skills that's so rare in a centre back. Ball carrying ability. We talked about Koundé being that kind of playmaker almost from right centre back. Fofana offers you that in abundance. He has that passing range. He has the height, which Koundé doesn't have. But more than that, it's just the fact that he's just of a level already, and he's going to get to that world class stage within a couple of years. So it's just such an exciting signing. It also frees up Reece James as a right wing back, and if that's not worth 70 odd million in itself, freeing up your kind of best attacker in our current squad, then I don't know what is.
That to me is the underline of yes, 100%. Would you say paying 45 million would be good for Fofana, and then another 30 million to have Reece not have to play right center back? Yeah, I think we could all get behind that in terms of the structure about thinking about it. And look, we still massively underpaid for Conte. So look, Leicester just coming to get a little help right now. They're in massive financial straits at the moment, and they can use every little bit of investment. And so I don't besmirch them at all for how tough they have been in negotiating this and not making this easy on Chelsea in terms of getting a deal across the line. But when you think about the fact now, Tuchel will not be forced to play Azpilicueta with a regularity, but can potentially use him more selectively, which will keep him fresher, keep him someone who can kind of rotate in to spell West for a game, to spell Reece for a moment. You have Ruben, who has shown an effectiveness within that right wing back role. So now what you're doing by adding someone here is you're creating the depth that you were not showing that you had the ability to take advantage of heading into these first couple matches of the season.
And also, Wes just offers you that versatility as well, right? He's played throughout his young career at St Etienne and at Leicester, all the way across the back in the back three or in the two as part of the four. So it's much like Trev, right? You're future-proofing, but also you're giving yourself those options at the back for Tuchel to use this season.
Youth and versatility, pretty much the ideal player in this one. And then linked to that probably, and I think Ampadu's probably been looking at this for a while. Fabrizio Romano tweeted that Spezia are set to sign Ethan Ampadu from Chelsea. Been told deal is now progressing to the signing stage. More details on deal structure to follow. Ampadu's agreed personal terms and full agreement between clubs in place. And that's Spezia Calcio. And if they hurry up, they can sign him before they play Juventus on the 31st of August, but I don't know how well that's going to work out. But look, Ethan, after his loan in Venezia, knows Serie A. He's probably looking at Fick and Tammy, and saying, wow, you're having a lot of success in Italy. I was there last season, played a lot of minutes. Let's go back. And that seems to be kind of the play for him. Obviously, he's going to make decisions wholly based on his ability to be primed and ready for the World Cup for Wales. So losing him, it's a bummer. But again, it just, no matter the situation, nothing really seemed to click for him. So this might be a good chance for him to hit reset and get minutes and make a home for himself. Because like I said, it's worked so well for, the other guys he's grown up playing with. So the attack is a big part, as we've talked about. I know we scored an amazing 2 goals yesterday, but we don't always do that. So attack seems like the area Chelsea looked most likely to reinforce next, since Tuchel ruled out any midfield signings, to my massive dismay. But we're seeing like stalling of the incomings and outgoings. What are we doing with Ziyech? Pulisic, I think he's settled maybe a little bit. We're not really sure. But here we go. Aubameyang, not happening, is happening, not sure. So surprise, Wilfried Zaha, Ollie, is now the new one that we've seen being linked with Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, name a year where he hasn't been linked with Chelsea is my counter to that. You're talking about a player who, like, before he moved to United was linked to Chelsea. So that's how, like, if you remember that, how many years back that was. The idea that he would play through the middle is quite confusing to me, where, Crystal Palace, his team, have signed nines that they would prefer to play through the middle as well. In terms of a dynamic forward, yeah, great. He would absolutely suit that style. I really like him when he's on song. He does have a habit of digging at his own teammates a bit too much, which is slightly toxic for my liking. But yeah, if you're going for a profile like Zaha, there is a younger, I would say more talented Portuguese player that's playing with Fick at the moment that you might want to look out for. Maybe take the
Is that Leao's music?
Maybe take the Gordon fee, the Aubameyang fee, and kind of pool it and go big in the last week of the window for Leao.
Yeah, Miguel Delaney still putting that link out there, and the Anthony Gordon one. Again, Dan, nothing against him. I know he scored and pushed a coach, so he got an XB over the weekend. But
he did, true.
The numbers and the dollars, like Ollie's saying, is just crazy to us, especially when you have the Callum and there's other opportunities in the transfer window potentially. But I do think that if Zaha comes into Chelsea's dressing room, he probably quiets down a little bit.
You're thinking that he would not be a destabilizing force. I would probably agree with that, because you're upping the level of talent that he's playing with. And I think the frustration he seems to have typically tends to be with like why does nobody else want to help me? Like, why have I, because he's been a talisman for that team for a very long period of time. And obviously they have a couple new players like in Olise and Eze, who definitely, I think, make life a little easier on him. So I feel like he's starting maybe to enjoy football a little more. But I think where you're seeing the connection is that he has less than a year remaining on his contract. It was a contract that he's tried to get out of multiple times and force a move elsewhere. Not maybe as publicly as some players. No Instagram stories to speak of, even though there's some fun photoshops of it. But I think in this regard, Zaha feels like maybe it's just too little too late to potentially get done. I do like the shout for Leao. And I think the one with Gordon is, to me, feels like you looked at like what happened with Bowen at West Ham and you're like, I think he's on the statistical trajectory of what happened to Bowen, where he had an ability to go from really, good performances to being a very, very competent right-wing player in that setup. And you're saying, are we potentially buying into Gordon on an overpay to get him the year before he blows up? Because he does have a double-digit goal and assist season in him this year, he could be worth 70, 80, 90 million pounds next season? Sure, because that's the rate of the inflation in the transfer market, and it's the value of someone who's a English player because there is a premium there. So look, Sam, our good friend CFC Central, put a good post together that's on his Substack about why Anthony Gordon, why would Chelsea be after him? I think there are elements to his game, but I do like the idea that if you're going to go with somebody, pay maybe more now for someone who's proven that they can get multiple goals and assists in the season, potentially do it as a part of a campaign to win a title within their respective league and respective country. That seems like a really good shout. And the Aubameyang one, to me, has to be a very, very expensive short-term loan. It is a bridge loan to get you into next season to go after who you really want, whether that's potentially buying back Tammy after him having a very successful season now in Roma, or going after Nkunku or others. Like, there's a lot of options that will become available next window, and you don't want to tie yourself down to Brandon like a 3-year deal potentially with Aubameyang, where you're now stuck with him, stuck with high wages, and don't have the same flexibility, because that's part of being able to be nimble in the window, is also having flexibility, because your deals aren't hamstringing you as it was with like a Barkley still sitting on the books, where you have tons of money on someone who doesn't even play, isn't even featured in the plans, and it might be better just to figure out how you cut and run.
Yeah. Deal making at its finest. 3-year plan, 5-year plan is just as important as the 1-year plan, and not essentially making rash decisions now that are going to affect the squad balance and composure or composition, down the road. Bully's got a 10-year deal at a minimum. It is written into the agreement. He can't burn himself in the first couple of years and flip it. And so he has to take that long-term approach to some of these deals. I think my guess is Pulisic will stay. It sounds like Hudson-Odoi to Leverkusen. There was a lot of talk about that even a few days ago about getting done. It's gone quiet. I think it's because the weekend and matches and things were happening, kind of took over the news cycle. So we'll probably hear Monday, Tuesday, obviously, because the window closes after Wednesday, if he's going to make that move. And then Ziyech to Ajax potentially. So there's definitely a couple that need to come in if you lose both Ziyech and Hudson-Odoi. And so something's going to happen, and we just have to wait to see. Again, Aubameyang, I joked in the chat, can we take him at 1.5 years? Can we make sure we don't do 2? But this is a lot of posturing, and at the end of the day, it looks like Barcelona have registered all their players, so I think they are okay as far as it stands.
A personal guarantee. It is the most absurd thing. It's like the Michael Scott, I declare bankruptcy, Laporta, I personally guarantee. That is exactly what he did in the La Liga offices. I will find the video. There has to be video of it.
There's in that place, there's definitely video of it somewhere. Anyways, just real quick, I think we can just touch again on the fact that midfielders ain't going to happen. Good to see Kova. I wonder what's going to happen with Conte and Jorginho, both out of contract. Billy is nowhere to be found. I actually went back and I was browsing our TikTok and saw the Matt Law, kind of discussion and how he feels bad for Billy, hasn't been given a squad number, how he's treated in preseason. The least Chelsea can do is find him a home. Again, Scotland going to the World Cup for the first time ever, ? It's either first time or second time. It's been decades since they've gone, and he wants to be a part of those plans as well. So at a minimum, don't shelve him, find him somewhere to go. He's not an expensive player. Like, take care of the kid or the lad. The wee lad is appropriate. But any midfield discussions other than the fact that it still was okay yesterday? All right. Love it. We're just going to crutch our way through this season with what we've got. Dan, let's go ahead and pivot to your Dan of the match. Glad to have you back, sir. Glad you didn't have to take this weekend off.
Well, look, it's we don't run it when we lose. And so that's just we don't run it when we have terrible draws. We try to kind of channel into the positivity. And look, it was a tight one. I don't know if I agree with the end result, but the people have spoken. 39% said Raheem Sterling was their winner. Silva had 29.5. That would have been my choice. But again, the people have spoken. Wesley Fofana, shock, 18%. Just really coming out of the gate, not even officially signed and doing the work. Really, just
that's tampering, Dan.
James.
That is tampering.
Look, I had fun with it. You have to have a little fun with these things. And then Reece James with 14% of the total poll as well. So
yeah, all fun and games until we receive an injunction from Leicester City Football Club. So thanks for that. I'm gonna have to spin up the legal fees again.
Yes, because they're listening to the American Chelsea podcast. Hey, these Yankee Doodles, what are they doing?
Hey, my thing is, you score 2 goals and you win, you're always gonna get it, right? The fact that Sterling got it should really be no surprise. All right. Goals sell man of the match bowls. You know this. All right.
I just had a different view. That's all.
All right. So if we look around the Premier League, there's some interesting results. Tottenham are playing Forest right now. Tottenham up, but Man United apparently in fine form with 2 wins in a row, beating Southampton 1-0. Brighton beating Leeds 1-0. So we should fear the goals, apparently. Man City, after being down 2-0, come back, aka Erling Haaland comes back to win 4-2. Liverpool dismantling Scott Parker's Bournemouth 9-0. Should we pause there real quick? 9-0. And I don't know if you heard Scotty's post-match comments. He said he doesn't think this is going to be their low point this season, Ollie. What in the world? How do you say that as a manager?
Yeah, I mean, he said, we're fundamentally not equipped to play football at this level. And I'm like, Scott, it's 4 games, man. Like, you can't just write off your entire squad before the window's even closed. Like, I know Bournemouth they're basically not buying people, right? Because they don't want to make that investment and then have to pay for it later because they feel like they're probably going to go back down. It's kind of a Norwichism in that sense. But like 4 games in, like Oily Sailor, who I follow on Twitter, he's an Opta analyst, and I'm sure you guys might follow as well. He said, Bournemouth are already surpassed our 04-05 goals conceded figure after 4 games. It's August, man. Like, it's not a good look. 3 more than Petr Cech that whole season.
They have a negative 14 goal difference, and they're still in 17th. There are teams worse than them. Riddle me that. So as we continue to look around the league, where was I? Brentford, Everton drawing 1-1. Arsenal beating Fulham 2-1, barely. Wolves 1, Newcastle 1, Villa 0, West Ham 1. So I think West Ham getting their first points of the season. And like I said, 1-0 Tottenham over Forest with 10 minutes left in the match. So the table's exciting. Super exciting. If you look at it, Arsenal at top, Man City second, Tottenham third, Brighton fourth. Set up shop. Leeds 5th, Chelsea 6th. So we're on 7 points. Top of the table is 12 points. So you could say we're already 5 points off it. Bottom of the table, pretty interesting here. So West Ham taking a big jump up with their first win. You've got Everton in 18th place with 2 points. Wolves in 19th place with 2 points. And Leicester City now bottom of the table with only 1 point. And again, Bournemouth just hanging in there on 17th with negative 14 goal difference.
The one that I will call out as I think they absolutely could go down is Villa. I think they have not reinforced at all. They've gotten some money, but they actually have a worse goal differential than Everton and Wolves. And I think Everton look more likely to reinforce over the next couple of days than they do. They're making, I think, a couple of smart signings, and Frank seems to know how to motivate a side just enough. And I feel like Villa is probably the one that is more likely to drop down there with Leicester if they do not spend this money intelligently and quickly. I think you could see Leicester, Bournemouth, and Villa going down as the 3.
Look, with Villa, they're that meme poking with a stick and say, do something. I mean, Stevie G odds on to get sacked, probably for me. So look, far too early to take any real readings of anything, Ollie, especially when you kind of look at the strength of schedule, which is a huge thing in like the NFL and all of their fans. Arsenal have had like a 1 for their strength of schedule. I mean, just walking the park in some of the lowest of the teams, barely getting by this weekend as well. But City showing that they can come back after we've already kind of laughed them off. Liverpool, we're saying they're struggling. They just banged 9 in against Bournemouth, but not a big litmus test there either. So we're starting to kind of see some interesting things settle. But when majority of the tables on single digit points, a lot can move week to week.
I mean, 9 goals, right? I mean, you're talking about maybe the bottom 5 around them all together have a combined better goal difference than them. So yeah, all at the bottom of the table. So yeah, I mean, in terms of Arsenal, it's pretty risky to go on record, but to me, I would say they're kind of like an elephant stuck up a tree. It's like you don't know how they got there, but at some point it's going to fall, right? That's how I'm looking at that. City are just City. They're ominous. The Haaland thing is quite interesting in terms of how they're having to adapt tactically to just be kind of playing through him and only him. It's quite interesting to watch. I think that might play to their Champions League kind of peril as well, because if you remember Barcelona with Ibrahimovic, there was a kind of similar plug and play aspect with him about his quality there, and it kind of ended up souring a bit. But maybe Haaland will do better there. But yeah, it is early season, and as you said, like this is a season like no other. Like this is the easy stage now. The first 4 games, easy street. After this, you've got midweek every week to the World Cup. You've got the World Cup with sociopaths like Deschamps in charge of your players, and then off the back of that, you're going to have a bunch of players who haven't played for a month, a bunch of players who have played like every day for a month. And then there's going to be a preseason before coming back at Christmas. Like people don't understand how crazy the season's going to be. It's almost like 2 seasons in one, right? So whoever's top going into the World Cup, they're going to basically have to hope to hold that form through the World Cup and their players come back fit and then start again from Christmas. Like this is going to be an absolutely stupid season. And some of the results already, like just from the various fitness levels throughout the league, have already shown like depth is going to be crucial, versatility is going to be crucial, subs are going to be crucial, and we're just going to have to see the most intelligent managers come to the fore.
All right. Well, key rotation, key with subs, key with using every member of your squad to be a part of it, which I think is why clearing out some of the options so that you reduce down bad choices. Like, look, sometimes when you're, dieting, right, Brandon, like you don't buy cookies and leave them up in the cupboard, right? You don't have them in your house. You put a healthy snack in its place. And so, get maybe the Ross Barkleys or others just out of the area. So Tuchel is prevented from making a bad decision.
Yeah, like gluten-free cookies, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going.
Cool. Well, before we wrap, Dan, a new thing Ishan on the team wants us to start doing is the loan heat check. So we've got a couple updates on some of our loan army performers.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have to look much further than Brighton being in the top 4 at the moment, and Potter's men continuing to look like they're in very fine form at the start of the season, and Levi Colwill getting his first opportunity to start this past Wednesday. It was against Forest Green Rovers in the Carabao Cup. He kept the clean sheet, played the ball up for the first goal. He was able to come on for the last 10 Leeds as well, which, again, we know as someone who's played Leeds recently that they like to press you for the entirety of the match. And so if you're getting the opportunity to come in the last 10 minutes, I think that's a reflection of that there's some trust there to be able to secure and not do something inherently stupid to give it up in the last 10. So I think that's a lot of early trust there from Potter, which you would hope would see him potentially get opportunities to start in the Premier League in the very, very near future.
Yeah, again, Potter's not going to disrupt what's working, but the fact that he's going to be brought on and start to get some minutes is good, and he can just show his quality. Then second up is actually Tino Andrea and Ollie. 2 goals and a man of the match performance while on loan at Huddersfield. Obviously, he's had a bunch of injuries and things like that, but the goal he took this weekend was a beaut.
Yeah, I mean, both goals were really nice actually. Big XBs in the build up to the second goal, just kind of cleared the defender out into the hoardings right there, and then ran through and put it top bins. But the first goal, if you've not seen it, definitely look it up. He scored like 25 yards, just picked his spot, top right, curled it from the corner of the box there. He's coming off a preseason where, like a few of our squad, they've basically hired a personal trainer to hit the ground running, and he looks like super ready to go. Like he looks like he's going to absolutely dominate that league.
Very, very excited. So again, more loan updates throughout the season. We're going to make sure we get this comprehensive coverage of the club. But that's going to wrap us up. Leicester match review in the bucket. We are done. Ship it off. Everyone out there, hope you enjoyed it. More content coming at you. We got Chelsea women. We got some other kind of specials that are coming around. Nick is in London, so he's going to be doing some recordings with people as well. I know Ollie, you're probably going to get to meet up with him. And so a lot of fun content coming out this week as usual. So anyways, that's going to wrap us up. Huge thank you to Ollie for joining us. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.